The British monarchy has always promised dignity, honour, and family unity. Yet when history looks back on this generation of Windsors, one truth will shine brighter than the crown itself. Prince Harry was the only one who dared to choose conscience over comfort, truth over silence, and love over the cold machinery of royal protocol. How does a father watch his youngest son be shredded by tabloids, betrayed by courtiers, and mocked by so-called sources close to the palace, and do nothing? King Charles, the man who pledged renewal and compassion, turned his back on the one child who embodies both. He could extend grace to every shadow in his kingdom, yet the son who spoke of mental health, equality, and transparency was treated as a trespasser in his own family story. Harry was stripped of support, his security revoked, his home repossessed, a home gifted by his late grandmother, the one royal who truly saw his heart. The symbolism cut deeper than steel. A monarchy that preaches duty could not extend basic decency to its own flesh and blood. The same institution that financed endless renovations and reputational rescue missions for others decided that Harry's honesty was the only unforgivable sin. And what of Prince William? Once the brother who laughed beside him, now the enforcer of the silence. Their bond, once unbreakable, was sacrificed to appease headlines and hierarchy. The rivalry was not born of Harry's rebellion, it was born of fear. Fear that the world might love the spare more than the heir. Fear that authenticity might eclipse the scripted smile. In protecting image, William helped destroy Brotherhood. Through it all, Harry stood tall. He left the palace, but not his principles. He built a life based on compassion, advocacy, and love. Values the crown claims to uphold but often forgets to live by. He spoke for veterans, for those battling depression, for those crushed by the weight of tradition. He honoured his mother not with words, but with action. Where others guarded secrets, he told the truth. Where others hid behind titles, he stood as a man. To watch Harry is to witness courage in motion, the courage to build, to forgive, to start anew. While castles crumble under scandal and denial, Harry's moral architecture grows stronger. He has something no gilded title can buy: peace. If monarchy is to survive the modern age, it must learn from the one man it tried hardest to erase. For history will remember not the robes, not the rituals, but the humanity of the prince who chose freedom over favour. King Charles allowed his pedo brother to live freely, but threw Prince Harry under the bus. He took his son's money to renovate a home gifted by the late Queen, the very grandmother who saw Harry's heart before the world did. And then, in an act of royal betrayal dressed as tradition, he snatched it back. Who needs enemies when your family wears crowns instead of conscience? Britain's monarchy thrives on selective morality, a palace that preaches virtue while practicing deceit. When Prince Andrew's scandal burned through the headlines, what did King Charles do? He shielded his brother. He whispered of rehabilitation, of private suffering, of a man who has paid enough. But when Harry dared to speak his truth, dared to protect his wife and children, Charles slammed the gates shut and called it a necessary separation. A nation watched in disbelief. The so-called pedo prince lives quietly in royal luxury, guarded, protected, cushioned from the world's disgust. Meanwhile, the prince who served 2 tours in Afghanistan, who built a charity empire for veterans and mental health, was exiled. Harry was cast out, not for sin, but for sincerity. King Charles speaks often of duty, of legacy, of the future of the crown. But what kind of legacy builds palaces on betrayal? What kind of father strips his own son of security, dignity, and home? Frogmore Cottage was no ordinary house. It was a symbol, a promise from the late Queen that Harry and Meghan would always have a place in the kingdom they served. She gave it not as a handout, but as recognition of Harry's loyalty. He paid for its renovations with his own money, millions. And yet, after his grandmother's death, King Charles clawed it back like a miserly landlord reclaiming rent from a tenant he despised. Then, to add insult to injury, reports swirled that the funds Harry paid were funneled elsewhere, to repair and refurbish the very palaces his father and disgraced uncle live in. A moral audit of that alone would shame the institution. A son's hard-earned money repurposed to fund the comfort of a man accused of preying on minors. If this is royal justice, then God save us all. Prince Andrew's crimes aren't whispers, they're historical stains. His name lives in the same breath as exploitation and corruption. Yet his consequence? Silence and protection. He was stripped of titles for optics, not ethics. Behind closed doors, his life remains steeped in privilege, his residence, his income, his royal access untouched in spirit. While survivors cry for justice, the monarchy cries for image control. King Charles and William both sought to manage Andrew's fallout, not correct it. The message was clear: protect the predator, punish the truth-teller. And so when Harry left to protect his family from racist press attacks, from mental torment, from a media onslaught weaponized by his own blood, his father and brother did not stand with him. They fed the flames. They briefed the tabloids. They painted him as unstable, ungrateful, dramatic. But when Andrew's scandal broke, the palace instructed the media to show compassion. The double standard was breathtaking and devastatingly revealing. The tension between the brothers didn't begin with Meghan. It began with jealousy. William, the heir to the throne, the golden child of the institution, couldn't stomach his younger brother outshining him in sincerity, in humanity, in global admiration. When Harry walked through African minefields for his mother's charity, William was nowhere near such courage. When Harry embraced soldiers, orphans, and mental health sufferers, the world saw Diana's fire living on, but not in the air. It lived in the spare. William, instead of joining that light, chose to dim it. He aligned himself with the palace machine, a system that destroys authenticity for optics. Leaks to the press became a pattern. Whisper campaigns against Meghan became weapons of distraction. The future king proved himself not as a leader, but as a participant in royal cruelty. To watch Harry's family, his father and brother, conspire with tabloids that tore his wife apart was to watch betrayal of biblical proportions. William, who once stood beside Harry at their mother's funeral, became the very thing Diana despised. A man who values reputation over righteousness. When they cast Harry out, they expected him to fail. They thought the media would devour him, that he would crawl back to the palace gates in defeat. But Harry did what no Windsor before him dared. He thrived without the crown. He built a life rooted in purpose, not privilege. In California, he became a father, guided by empathy, a husband who protects his wife, a man who channels pain into advocacy. His projects, Invictus Games, Archewell Foundation, and his work for mental health have touched millions. No title can buy that kind of impact. He showed that you don't need a throne to have power. You just need truth. And that's what terrifies them. The institution that silenced him now watches as the world applauds his voice. Every time he speaks, he exposes the rust beneath the monarchy's gold veneer. Every act of kindness he performs highlights their hypocrisy. Every smile beside Meghan exposes the coldness of those he left behind. King Charles, for all his talk of modernization, governs with insecurity. He cannot tolerate dissent, not from politicians, not from his son. He preaches environmentalism while living in sprawling estates that consume more energy than small towns. He claims compassion while endorsing cruelty through silence. His monarchy is not one of unity, but of survival. He clings to titles and optics while his moral authority collapses. When Harry and Meghan were chased by paparazzi through the streets of New York, Charles said nothing. When online mobs, many fueled by royal correspondence, targeted his son's wife with racial abuse, Charles said nothing. But when his brother needed protection, suddenly, the palace found its voice. That silence screams louder than any speech. It tells us where his loyalty truly lies, not with justice, not with truth, but with power and preservation. He chose to protect the image of monarchy over the humanity of his own child. History will remember that. The Windsors are not bound by love, they are bound by control. Their unity exists only in public photos and rehearsed smiles. Behind the palace walls, envy, fear, and politics dictate every embrace. They mocked Diana for her humanity. They vilified Meghan for her courage. They punished Harry for his compassion. And through it all, they enabled the likes of Andrew. Proof that the monarchy rewards silence and punishes truth. Who needs enemies with a family like this? Isn't just a quote. It's a question millions now ask aloud. How can a family preach loyalty while betraying its best soul? How can a father choose optics over empathy? How can a brother become a rival instead of a protector? The answer is simple. Because the monarchy is built on hierarchy, not heart, and Harry refused to bow to either. Harry's journey from palace walls to California sunshine is not exile, it's emancipation. He carries his mother's legacy like a torch, not of rebellion, but of rebirth. The same press that tried to destroy him now grudgingly reports his achievements. The same public that once doubted him now sees his heart for what it is, honest, raw, unfiltered. He doesn't need royal robes to represent decency. His uniform is integrity, his crown is love. His kingdom is the family he's built with Meghan, one of compassion, equality, and light. While the monarchy clings to archaic structures, Harry builds bridges. While they curate their image, he creates real change. He proves that the true measure of royalty is not bloodline, but backbone. History has a way of correcting its myths. Just as the world once saw through the empire's colonial facade, it now sees through the monarchy's moral one. The crown's glamour cannot hide its corruption forever. King Charles's reign will be remembered not for progress, but for pettiness. William's legacy will not be leadership, but jealousy, and Andrew's name will forever echo shame. Meanwhile, Harry will stand apart, not as a victim, but as a survivor who chose truth over titles. When the dust settles, history will not remember who wore the crown, it will remember who carried the conscience, and that person will be Harry. King Charles allowed his pedo brother to live freely, but threw Prince Harry under the bus. He took from his son to enrich a system already bloated with greed. He stripped him of home, dignity, and belonging, all because Harry dared to be human in a family allergic to humility. But from that betrayal rose something beautiful: freedom. Harry's exile became his evolution. His pain became his power. His rejection became his redemption. Who needs enemies with a family like this? Certainly not Harry. He's built a new one, based on truth, love, and light. And when the monarchy finally crumbles under the weight of its own hypocrisy, one name will stand unblemished in the ashes: Prince Harry, the one royal who chose his soul over his surname.
And that's wraps our daily diaries updates. Harry and Meghan. Always keep the world talking. And if you enjoy this update, do not forget to like, share, subscribe. And for more royalty served with honesty, just right here on Daily Diaries Friday. Till next time, stay kind, stay curious, and keep shining. See you next time with more royal news and good vibe. Bye bye.